Alright, Psycho 3 time. Now, in my notes, the first thing that I wrote is, first off, not anywhere as good as the first two, and I wrote that before I watched the movie. And wow, just rewatching this, I've always thought this movie was okay. I never thought it was as great as the first two, but it's still not as great as the first two, but honestly, this is way better than I remembered it. I don't know, like, this just really stuck with me this time. Like, it really pulled it off, and just how interesting this plot is, and how different it is, again, to the first one, but in a way where it seems like it's caring for the first film. Like, it's not like a cynical grab. Like, even though it's a sequel, it really feels like it does a lot of different things, like the second one. Even though I love the first two more than this, it's way better than I remember it. It opens up with a scene that at first I thought was weird, where it opens up in a church, and somebody just screams, "There is no God!" And it's the Maureen character, who will be prevalent throughout the movie, but she's gonna commit suicide at this church. But then she accidentally kills a nun who falls down and dies off of the top floor in this church. So real props to how different it is to, again, like, it's a different thing. It's way more different than the first two. I don't know if I love it, but I think that that's a cool difference in this one to the first two, in which the opening with the church and with Maureen and with the nuns, like, that's so different than the other two. And the opening score is awesome. Like, this, like I said about Psycho 2, like, the score is really good too. I mean, is incredible too. This is just as incredible for different reasons. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but Carter Burwell did the score for this one, and it rivals the first, like, it rivals Psycho 2 in terms of how great the sequel is. I mean, in terms of how great the score is in the sequels. But there's a great shot with the score of Maureen crying, and, like, there's a car coming, like, driving towards her, like, out in the desert. And, like, it's a really amazing shot. Like, there's so many great shots in these sequels, too, that people don't give credit for. But then Maureen meets this Dwayne Duke character, who is one of the reasons why I don't like this movie as much as the other two, even though I think it's better than what I remember it. This Dwayne character I don't like at all. Like, he's fucking, like, I know he's supposed to be a douchebag character, but God, I can't stand him. He goes, like, he takes Maureen with her, like, she needs to hitchhike, she doesn't know where she's going. He takes her with him, and he tries to rape her, and then she gets out, and then he calls her a stupid bitch because she didn't let him rape her. Like, fuck you, guy. Like, don't, like, fuck that. That's so stupid. That, like, that's really shitty. That, like, I mean, I know, like you said, I know this character's supposed to be horrible, but it's so stupid. I don't like him. And then the Norman introduction is interesting in this one, because Norman, after the end of part 2, is different now, since he wasn't the kill in part 2. But he collects the dead birds for taxidermy. Like, did he poison that little fountain thing? Because, like, the birds literally are all just laying there dead. Like, are they poisoned in that? But, like, he does a taxidermy thing, and then it shows a paper saying Emma Spool still missing. So I do like this, how this connects to part 2 a lot. It does a good job of that. But then, of course, Norman hires Dwayne Duke, and like, that's an okay part of the movie, where it's just like he brings Dwayne Duke in, but Dwayne Duke is kind of like Toomey from the last one, where he's just a douchebag, and he's just there to be obnoxious and ruin the motel and make it look bad. Because, like, Toomey, it's kind of just like a drug and sex type place, party place. But yeah, I don't know. It's just alright. I liked how they brought back the sheriff and the cook, though, in the scene at the beginning of the movie, where, like, they're wondering where Spool is. But then they bring in this character named Tracy, who I kind of like, who's this reporter who's trying to figure out where Spool is, too. And throughout this movie, she's trying to figure it out as well. Um, and she talks to Norman at the diner because Norman comes in to get food and burgers for like Dwayne because he just started, and he's like, "I'll get you burgers." And then he goes to that diner from the second one and talks to the Tracy girl, and the cop and the cook, or the sheriff and the cook are like, "Norman, is she bothering you?" Because Tracy starts asking him things that would set him off probably, but Norman doesn't act set off. But like, she says stuff to where you think he would. And then I love this. This is a great form of storytelling in this scene where Tracy is talking to him about Marion Chambers, or not, Marion Crane. Sorry, not Marion Chambers. I don't know why I thought Halloween. Marion Crane. She's talking to him about how he killed Marion Crane, and then Maureen gets off a semi with a suitcase that says MC on it, and she walks in, and Norman sees it, and then he imagines in his head that killing from the first movie, and that is a cool way of connecting Norman to have this connection with Maureen, who is this character who looks like Marion. Like that's really cool that they connected that to it, and it gets him to like Maureen a lot because of he feels guilty for killing Marion, so it's like he starts to like this other girl and wants to help her out because she's in a rut. That's really cool. And it was just really perfectly placed. And then he even in the thing he's imagining where he killed Marion, it even ends with, instead of Janet Leigh, it ends with the actress who plays Maureen in this movie, her head on the floor, like her reaction, like how Janet Leigh's reaction was in Psycho, like Maureen character replaced her in the last shot, like Norman imagined killing her, but I like that he knew in his head, like he's not gonna do it this time, he's gonna save her, he's gonna be caring for this person. But then Maureen goes to the Bates Motel where of course she sees Dwayne again, because Dwayne just, what he did, like she's scared of him now. So of course she's frightened, and it's just kind of annoying with that part of having the Dwayne character there. And then Norman's struggle is again great because he talks to Spool's dead body, and and she says like in his mother's voice like because she starts to realize, like his mother character in his head is starting to realize what is going on because he starts to like Maureen, and then of course the mother character says like she's a whore, like she's like you gotta kill her for me. Like it really, it's creepy, but it's fun and entertaining at the same time. With the mother character now, she dominates him. But I like the scenes with his struggle. Like his struggle in this movie too is really good. But then he sees Maureen through the peephole in the shower, kind of like how he did with Mary in the second one too. But I like the fact that Norman does actually decide on going on killing her, like Marion. But he goes in there, and then she's slit her wrists because she's suicidal, and then she in her head is imagining the Virgin Mary, while Norman doesn't know what to do because she's already slit her wrists, like she's already dying. So that was a cool way to interact with this character, with the Norman character not knowing what to do and the Maureen character seeing the Virgin Mary, like she's seeing somebody to save her in her moment of suicide. And I thought that was just really cool. Like that was a cool moment and a cool twist on the audience, because it's like, oh, he's gonna kill her. No, he doesn't, because she's already trying to do herself. But I really like that scene. That's really cool. And then we get a lot of scenes of like Dwayne and Tracy. Like Tracy's trying to get info from everybody, so she talks to Dwayne, and nothing really comes of it. But then Norman calls the ambulance himself, which is cool, and Marion is taken to a hospital. And I love the fact that Norman saves her. Because of the dominated mother thing, you would have thought he would have killed her, but it works really well in how he saves her and he cares for her, because he does, I feel guilty in a way over Marion, like what he did to her. So I think that that's just really cool, and it makes this character Norman again more sympathetic, like the second one. It does a great job of making him sympathetic again. And I love whenever they're talking in the hospital and she's like, "Why are you so kind to me?" And then Norman just says, "You remind me of somebody I once knew." And it's very sweet. It's a very sweet moment, and these characters together are sweet, just like how Mary and Norman was. Even though I like Mary a little more, their relationship, this one is fine too, and they're really sweet together. But then we get the couple of obligatory kills in the movie, which are fine. They're just more kind of, I feel like they're not in there as, like, they're in it, but they're not like, they're there to up the scare factor. But I love these character moments more in this movie. But Dwayne has sex with this girl, Red, who is that girl Robin from Friday the 13th Part 5. Juliet Cummins, I think is her name. But like, God, this I hate this scene because it makes Dwayne look worse, because Dwayne goes and has sex with her, but like she bumps into his guitar while they're trying to do it, and he grabs her by the hair or by the face or something and says, "Don't touch the guitar," and like being forceful and being horrible. And then then after they have sex, he kicks her out and he says, "Get out of here! I don't want you here anymore." And then he said something like he's better than a vibrator to her, and then her response, which is a great response, is she just says, "Well, at least a vibrator gets me off." Like, and then he like throws her out without her clothes, and then he gives her clothes, but still, it's like, fuck you, Dwayne. Like, this guy is so horrible, like horrible character. I mean, like I said, I know he's supposed to be a vicious, like, douchebag character, but I hate him. I hate him so much. Just annoying. And then Red gets a brutal kill in the phone booth, which I thought was pretty good, pretty intense. And then you hear from upstairs, like, Norman screams, "Blood, blood," like the first movie, like in the house, which I thought was a cool callback to the first one. But yeah, that was a good kill. And then basically most of the movie now is that Tracy's trying to figure out the hints for Spool's disappearance, and then Norman and Maureen kind of bond, but Norman's kind of hesitant because of what he is and his struggle. But they have a night together and they don't have sex, but Norman and Maureen, like, they sleep in the same bed, and then like Norman leaves halfway through the night. And then Mother gets more angry because he's not being with the mother, so it just again builds on his struggle really well. And Maureen doesn't understand because that Norman's struggling, like she doesn't know what's going on with him. But then there's this other kill, which is fine again, but it's like another girl gets killed that was at the motel, and it's just pointless. I mean, but it's a horror movie, it's a slasher, I know, but like, the kills in this one I feel like are completely less important, because I like these character interactions more in this movie than the horror. Like Psycho 2, I love the horror too, and the kills are better in that one, but this one, they're just fine. They're kills to be there to scare the audience, but they're just alright in this one. And then the sheriff comes down and tells Norm about the girl, Patsy, the second girl who gets killed. Like, she's missing. Like, the drunk people at the party, like, drove off without her and thought she was in the car with them. So she's just gone. And then I love this scene, because Norman is sitting there right next to the icebox where the sheriff grabs ice out and eats it, but then her body is right in there and it's bloody, and like he grabs bloody ice and starts eating it. And Norman smirks, like in a way where it's funny to him. I just thought that was an odd scene, but I liked it a lot. That's really cool. But then Maureen actually does leave, and Norman is actually sad, like, after this moment, because of what, like, she kind of just has to leave. And then, this is great, because after she's gone, his mother's missing, like, she's gone, so he goes into one of the cabins, because the note says, "Norman, I'm in cabin 12, mother." He goes in there, and Dwayne's got her dead body. And then they have a fight, because Dwayne is gonna blackmail Norman, and then Norman thinks he kills him and takes him into the swamp, but then Dwayne wakes up and fights him underwater, which is a cool scene. And of course Dwayne doesn't make it out, but I like that scene underwater. That was a cool scene. And I like how Norman was in fear of seeing the red character like in the swamp too, like seeing her body. Like that's cool because it shows that Norman is scared of what he is. I like that a lot. And then Tracy learns more where Spool was in an institution apparently, which makes sense because her son is crazy, Norman. But then Maureen comes back after the Dwayne thing, and I like this scene a lot. It does a cool nod to the first one. Maureen comes in, she tells Norman she loves him. Norman has her at the end of the stairs. He's grabbing her, but then he in his head hears his mother go, Norman! And then he turns around and lets go of her. She falls down the stairs, and she has that reaction like the first movie where Arbogast falls down the stairs. But then she gets impaled with like a statue that's got like a point on it, like a cupid, and she dies. And I love Norman's scream at Mother because he's so mad that like she took away again what he wanted. Like he wanted her, he loved her. And then Tracy, figuring out all this news, comes back, and Tracy's the final person to make it out. And I like how she confronts Norman and tells him the truth, which is a way of rewriting Psycho 2, because listening to the commentary on this, the people, like, was it the writer or the director? Screenwriter Charles Edward Pogue. Whoever that is, the screenwriter, he talked about in the commentary how he didn't like how in Psycho 2 it made it to where Spool was his mother, but he didn't like that, so he had to do a 360 reveal twist again, where it's like, oh, she isn't his mother. She just said she was because she's crazy. And Norma Bates is actually his mother still, which isn't okay. It's okay, but it's just like, what's the point? Like, that's a dumb... And he was so mad about it in the commentaries. He was so annoyed about it. But I'm like, whatever. That's not a big deal. That's not a big deal that Mrs. Spool was his mother. Like, you could still argue the fact on both, but yeah, I like that scene between Norman trying to get Tracy and just having that. And then I love the fact that it does a trick on the audience where Norman has a knife up, about to get Tracy. Then he stabs the mother, the dead mother. And that is cool because it made it seem like Norman is actually standing up to his psyche and like he's going to be cured. But then, of course, the sheriff comes in after he kills the mother, like in the morning, and he says to Norman, like, I stood up to you, Norman. I can't believe you did this again. And like, Norman is now responsible for the killings of like 2 and 3. So, well, I think he is. I think it said that. I don't know. Actually, I don't know if it says he's responsible for 2 or 3, even though he's not the killer in 2. But I know he's responsible for 3's killings. But I guess Mary and Lyle are still the ones that are responsible for it in 2, but I guess not. But Norman gets locked up again, and the sheriff says, you're never going to get out this time. And then Norman just says, it doesn't matter because I'll be free. I'll finally be free of her. And that was a great line, because Norman just struggling his whole life with his mother dominating him. Like, that's a great line where he says, I'll be free. It doesn't matter if I'm in jail. I'll be safe. I'll be free. But then we get this tiny little twist, which is awesome, where Norman's sitting in the back of the cop car, and sitting there, his hands are cuffed. He pulls something out of his jacket, and it's Spool's hand. He just rubs it, and just it cuts to him looking at the camera, creepy smile, and it ends. So he's not cured, but that's a great way to continue on the franchise. So I like that a lot. And this movie, again, like I said, rewatching it, I thought it was just okay before, but man, this really is a different and unique sequel to the Psycho films. And I know, again, like the second one, people are going to be annoyed that, oh, it's different, it's not the same, it's got things that ruin the first one, or not really ruin it in my opinion, it just makes them different than the first one, like the Spool being his mother or whatever. Like, those kind of twists to me don't really matter that much to a point. Like, they're just there to entertain. Like, I don't think that pisses me off. But yeah, this one just, again, just awesome. An awesome sequel. Like, not as good as the first two, but it's really, really great. So next up is Bates Motel, which is the 1987 TV movie, not the TV show. I'll talk about the TV show later, but the next Psycho film to come out was a TV film that nobody has heard of called Bates Motel. I fucking hate it, and I'm gonna watch it just to talk about it. But fuck that movie. I'm gonna. That's my next one. So yeah, next one is the Bates Motel TV movie. So fuck. I guess thanks for watching for this one, and hopefully you'll watch the next one, because that's one nobody knows about, that TV movie. Like, nobody really knows the thing exists, which I'm glad, because it's a piece of shit. So but again, this one, Psycho 3, really awesome. Glad I finally got to rewatch it again. Really surprised me.